At the recent G7 meeting in Japan, President Biden described the China spy balloon incident in which a Chinese high-altitude surveillance ship violated American sovereignty as, quote, silly. To be frank, I don't find the Chinese spy balloon incident to be silly, and neither do the American people. That's why, in my capacity as ranking member of the banking subcommittee that oversees export controls, I sent a letter to Secretary Raimondo yesterday. In this letter, I requested export licensing data from Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security to see what American technologies were approved for export to China's aerospace sector, including to those in China who manufacture these types of spy balloons and their payloads. Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit this letter for the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Assistant Secretaries Kendler and Axelrod, do you agree to fully comply with my request for export licensing data, which Section 1761 of the Export Control Reform Act of 2018, or ECRA, requires the Commerce Department, if asked, to share with my subcommittee?
Senator, we will certainly comply with the terms of ECRA in responding to your letter.
Mr. Axelrod?
Same answer, Senator.
Thank you. I'm very concerned about news reports that the Biden administration continues to conceal attempts for more transparency on China's spy balloon incident, including a taxpayer-funded FBI report on this incident. That's why I'm using my authority under ECRA to ensure transparency on the extent to which U.S. technology exports have contributed to threats like China's spy balloon program. On April 26, Secretary Raimondo told Congress that her department has put over 200 companies on the entity list for export controls during her tenure. This statistic appears like an accomplishment at face value, but it falls drastically short of the previous administration standard. Frankly, in 2020, the Commerce Department added 147 companies to the entity list. And in 2021, that number decreased to 85. And in 2022, that number further decreased down to 68 Chinese companies that have been added to the entity list. Assistant Secretary Kendler, what's the explanation for this drastic decrease in the Commerce Department's entities listings?
Senator, I'd like to make sure that you have the right information. I believe it's 205 entities that have been added under the Biden administration in China.
Are you disputing the level that I'm talking about? These numbers add up to that number over the course of 2.5 years. Just in the last year of the previous administration, 147 companies were added to the entity list. And what we have seen is a decrease year over year to get to the total that you just named. But why are we decreasing? Why are you decreasing the activity in light of the fact that we've seen more and more of Chinese, CCP, I should say, predatory behavior?
Senator, I just want to make sure that we're being clear that these are Chinese entities, not overall entities. It is correct that 205 entities in China have been added to the entity list.
Why has there been a decrease year over year? That's my question.
Can I get back to you on that? I want to make sure that we're operating with the same data, please.
The data shows that there has been a decrease. And I want to understand the trend and what's underlying the trend.
We are deeply focused as one of the two pillars of export controls on entities that pose national security and foreign policy threats to the United States, particularly in China.
I am very concerned about this decrease. I'm also concerned about the fact that the Commerce Department still permits exports of U.S. technology to China's most worrisome state-owned defense enterprises, including, and I want to be specific here, Aviation Industry Corporation of China, China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation, and China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation. Let's turn to another issue that very much concerns me. That's Huawei. When I served as U.S. Ambassador to Japan, I worked very closely with the kitchen cabinet of Japanese government leaders, Japanese business leaders, to understand the threat of Huawei and what they could do in the 5G arena. I took my analysis back to Washington. I met with the president. We put a lot of pressure on the situation and persuaded this government to take action against Huawei and 5G. I did the same with the government of Japan to get Huawei out of 5G. I want to talk with you now about this issue, which clearly is of deep importance to me. I was very upset and disturbed to see an article in Reuters on May 11th that cited internal emails indicating that State Department delayed significant U.S. measures against China after the spy balloon incident, including far-reaching export controls on Huawei. This is in May of this year. So Assistant Secretaries Kendler, Rosen, have the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security prepared a draft rule to revoke export control licenses related to Huawei?
Senator, we do not have a draft rule in place at this time. However, we are looking very closely at this rule.
Tell me, have you received any guidance from within the Commerce Department or from anywhere in the interagency to back off and not do this?
Senator, we are working closely and we are under deep analysis of this issue. Huawei.
I am very concerned to see this administration basically back off and kowtow just so they can obtain high-level meetings with officials in China. This makes no sense. We should be speaking from a position of strength, not weakness, and this backing off is absolutely unacceptable.
Senator, we have not backed off this
Chairman,
issue.
I am
Thank you, Senator.